Hi, I'm Kevin Eikenberry, and I'm here to help you reach your potential as a leader and a human being. Welcome to Remarkable TV and the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, we're glad you're here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Today's episode, part of an ongoing series, is entitled 7 Deadly Presentation Sins. Are you ready? Let's get started. As I said a minute ago, this is part of an ongoing series about presenting your ideas more effectively. This is sort of a summary of the series up till now and a preview of what's to come, but it stands alone. The 7 deadly presentation sins. No, I'm not talking about sloth and pride and greed. I'm talking about 7 things that can really damage your ability to be effective as a presenter in any given situation. Here they are. Number 1, poor preparation. Man, if you are poorly prepared, you're not gonna do well. You're not going to have a level of confidence. You're not going to have a level of credibility. The ability for you to get your message across will be severely damaged. Next, being overly nervous. You've seen people nervous when they were presenting, and the reality is that we often feel for them because they're so nervous, but it's impacting their ability to get their message across, right? And the point that I want to make here is, while this is a deadly presentation sin, being too nervous severely hampers our ability to be successful. Sometimes we think we're more nervous, or we think it's showing more than it actually is. So be aware of that. Sometimes how you're feeling isn't all being translated, and yet all of those nerves are taking your focus off of the presentation and the audience and sort of keeping it on yourself, which isn't helping you. Number 3, a weak opening. Like, perhaps the most important part of your presentation is when you start. How do you capture people's attention from the beginning? How do you get them engaged with you? How do you get them interested in leaning forward on your message? If you have a weak opening, they might be looking at their phones rather than looking to your next point. Deadly presentation skill number 4, death by PowerPoint. Like, we could go on and on about this. There's another video in the series about this. Death by PowerPoint. What? Too many words, too many slides, reading the slides, relying on the slides. You've seen it. Death by PowerPoint is usually death to the presentation. Next, not having command of your content. Like, do you know your content? Do you know where you're going? Do you know how it fits together? Do you exude a level of confidence and command and understanding of what you're talking about? Without that, your message has a better chance of falling flat or being missed entirely. Your command, understanding of the content helps people stay engaged with you. Next, no ownership of the message. You ever seen someone give the presentation that was handed to them and then they're just giving it almost in third person? Giving a presentation when you haven't taken ownership of it, when you don't believe in it, when you're not sharing things that relate personally to you, that you're not using stories that connect the audience to you and to the message. If you don't have ownership of the message won't be delivered. And the last of the deadly sins is a crappy closing. As important as the opening is, so is the closing. The beginning and the end are the most important parts of your presentation. At the end is when you want to lock in people's engagement, when you want to remind them of the most important points, and when you want to leave them thinking about what they need to do next with what you presented about, regardless of what it is. And if your closing is crappy, your presentation won't be very successful. 7 deadly presentation sins. Even if you're super nervous and really don't like to give presentations, you won't die if you commit these sins. But the effectiveness of your presentation and perhaps your credibility will take a serious hit the more of these sins you commit. The good news is if you can fix the first one, the poor preparation sin, it will help you with several of the others at the same time. And preparation is the topic of next week's episode in this series. We've talked today about presenting, and we can do that in person or we can do that at a distance. And if you're a long distance leader, you probably have to do both. I want to offer you the chance today to think about pre-ordering your copy of the second edition of The Long Distance Leader, where we integrate what we've learned in the last several years since the first edition of the book and bring up to date all of the things that help you lead at a distance, to lead virtually, to lead remotely, to be effective and confident as a leader in the new world of work. You can learn more about it and get your copy pre-ordered by going to kevineikenberry.com/LDL. Let me close with today's remarkable reminder. There are 7 deadly sins of presenting effectively. The biggest is not being well enough prepared.